All right, so in this video, I go over how to use long-term and medium to short-term VWAPs with standard deviation bands, how they can inform your trades, how I can use them to make trades, and I also go over how to use rolling VWAPs as well. Let's get straight into it. First thing I want to go over, how do you set it up? So what you're going to want to do, you'll add your VWAP to your chart, and then basically, this is a yearly. I use yearly, quarterly, monthly, and daily VWAPs. So this is going to be the yearly, so I anchor it to the year. Then source, just leave the same. I do use standard deviation. And then for this example, I have bands 1 and 2 on. And then I all my band, I have them all selected, but I don't like this fill on. I think it looks ugly. So what am I looking at on these bands? So you can kind of think of these almost like moving averages, but they're a little bit different because, so it's a volume weighted average price. So I think it gives you a little bit more information, at least in my opinion, seems to be a little bit more accurate. So what are we looking at? Basically how I use them. You're going to look at a Gaussian curve, right? So on a normal TPO chart, they call it, if you don't know what a TPO is, just ignore me. You'll have a value area low, it's called, and then you'll have a value area high. So what are these used for? Basically, the value area low and high is just the Gaussian curve, right? So it's where 70% of the trading is taking place. It's going to be in this curve. Let me just delete this. And that's all it means. And so 70% is going to be inside this, right? You know, let me show you the fixed range volume profile tool so it even locks in better. Oh, let me turn this off. Okay. So as you guys can see, this would be the Gaussian part, right? So this would be 70%. It's in the little blue bars here. This would be your value area high, and then your value area low. So once that's out of the way, how do I use these ranges? So I love range trading. I love identifying ranges and kind of trading around them. So what do these VWAPs give you? Well, number one, they give you a baseline, right? They give you, hey, you know, if price were to crash all the way down here to this 2 standard deviation, it's probably oversold. It doesn't have to bounce, but I wouldn't be looking for shorts, right? That's all it tells you. The risk reward isn't great, right? Once we hit the +2, maybe the risk reward isn't good for the longs anymore. But again, guys, it's not a science. I mean, look at this breakout. We literally rode the +2. But what happens when we get too far from value? Normally we'll start ranging again, and we'll kind of let value come up and meet price, which is what did end up happening with kind of this big range as well up here. So we get expansion, it kind of gets too far away, and then we end up converging with value. So another way I like to use this, we have this kind of value area high play I like to use, especially on the higher time frames. If this has been about, again, this is a yearly VWAP, so if it's fresh, it's not going to be as good like this one. But I do love to use it around stuff like this. So we come up like here, you had it long off the value area high, you had another one here, and then once it breaks back inside, you can look for the short. You guys can see it wrote it here, and then it broke back inside. You know, this is just too messy, probably wouldn't trade that. And then this one here, you probably have a short, that's a loser, you get blown out, and then you have the larger context for breaking out of this range. I mean, you better go long. You better go long. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it on the yearly, right? So it's telling you where we oversold, some potential areas to trade. Now, let's put it all together real fast. So we have the yearly VWAP, and then I also have the quarterly. So I like to put them on the same chart, but you guys can tell it gives you areas to trade. Look at this one here. I think this is the best recent example. So we know we're in a ranging environment. We know we're in a ranging environment, so we're going to be looking to fade the extremes, right? I'm looking at this one right here. And look at what happens. You think about probably the two kind of coming up here. Look what happens when we kind of get into these extremes, right? And guys, think about it. This is the curve here. If you throw a fixed volume profile tool, you guys can see, right? We have the distribution again. And these are kind of following these bands, right? So if we're in a ranging environment, you want to be fading the extremes. Now it's easier said than done. You know, you don't know, hey, is this one the one that breaks out like that other example? You know, you're going to be looking at a lot more than just these VWAP bands, but this is how I use them intraday, intra-week to help me think about where price is going. Even here, the recent breakdown, right? We're grinding on the low of value, right? Think about the context as well. We're in this larger upper range here. Then what happens? We break out of it. We come back inside. We basically tested like the impulse of this candle, which is going to be right here. And then we're still outside of it, right? It's not going to be perfect ever, but you guys can see we're still outside of it. We basically got rejected. So we're outside of value, right? We're in a little downtrend. So it's giving you context throughout the day. Where am I looking to trade? Kind of what spots and stuff like that. So that's on the higher time frame. Now let's go over to the lower time frames. On the lower time frames, so, all right, this is going to be the monthly. So especially guys, especially when we're in a ranging environment like this one here, I love to mark out previous month value area low, we'll call it, previous month value area high, previous month VWAP. In this case, it wasn't really pertinent because we just crashed right through it, but look at the way price traded around these, right? So we're in this larger range. We come down here. I mean, this is your long, right? We're at the range low. We broke the previous month value area low. So it's giving you context of where we are. All right. Another thing I love to mark out, especially if we kind of break away from it, will be these previous VWAPs. So I'm always marking these out on my chart. So we have the previous month VWAP and then even these weekly ones. So we're going to have one right here as well. So guys, this, you know, potential area you're looking to trade, I never, ever trade these on their own. I'm always looking for order flow confluence. I'm always looking for basic price action principles. Like, I mean, this was the killer, right? This was the killer trade. You come up, you retest the underside of this massive range. You come up into this previous VWAP. It's the impulse candle, all that stuff. That's the trade you want to take, right? So that's kind of the lower time frames. I do want to go over it intraday as well. I love using it intraday for scalping because this is where I think it really excels on where it tells you when we get these extreme moves. Let me go to the 5 minute. So I think it excels, I mean, even better. I don't really even use the VWAP. I use the bands and the 1 standard deviation and the 2 standard deviation to tell me where I am in relation to value at all times, right? If I'm looking to long up here, I better bet that we're going to get some more continuation to the upside, right? I'm doing that value area high trade. Yeah, I'm not just longing this just because we hit the value area high. Again, to note, I don't just take these blindly ever. But what these do give you is they give you these risk rewards, right? So what we're down here, I mean, yes, it could keep breaking down, but do you want to really short into, you know, the 2 standard deviation? Or if you were short, do you want to start taking profit, right? So I use them for profit targets. I use them for context on where we are. Again, these can get very, very distorted, like on this recent breakdown here, right? We basically hugged, you know, this value area low all the way down. It didn't matter. We hit the 2 standard deviation band. We didn't get any major throwback, but you guys can tell it was pretty contained. It didn't really blow past it or anything like that. You know, we came up, sold, 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 sold. So, you know, if you took the trade off that, you probably did well, but I just don't, it's not what I do. So I'm always looking at where it is in relation to price. So like here right now, so we have previous day VWAP. I don't really think that's important. We already traded through it. And it's not even the US session. It was just kind of the overnight, the Asian session right now. So I don't think that's important. Yeah, I mean, sometimes these VWAPs just do nothing. So I'm mostly trading the previous VWAPs on the higher time frames. I don't think the lower time frames, you can use them, but it has to be confluent with other things. If you're just using them, like here, look, it literally just blew past it on this one here. If you're just using them like, oh, the previous day VWAP, I'm just going to long, it's not going to work, right? So this is the framework that I use for risk reward. It shows me where price is extended and everything like that. So that's how I use it on the low time frames. Something I didn't want to cover as well, these rolling VWAPs. So you can kind of use these rolling VWAPs as a measure of, it's kind of like a an EMA, because I think it's kind of like an EMA, but I think it's a lot better. You guys can see how good this rolling VWAP is. So all it does is it'll tell you, I think it can, I'm trying to word this correctly. It can tell you where risk is being put on and who's in control, right? I mean that's what a VWAP does essentially, but I think it's really powerful. Let's add it on here as well. So it can be, I mean, even in these ranging environments, you guys can see when it flips, we normally get bearish. When it flips back, we normally get bullish. It acts as a good dynamic support resistance line. So you guys can play around with the rolling VWAPs. You know, you can add like 120. I guess it won't let you go that high, which sucks. Nah, whatever. 30 will let me go 60 days. It will. Yeah, so you can do 30, 60. I was trying to do a quarter like 120. I guess it's not going to let you do those, but I think 30, 60, 120, you could probably do like a weekly one, like 7. And then 14, and you could probably do a session as well, rolling VWAP, if you want to mess around with them. That's just another tool that I use, though. The main ones I use are going to be these VWAPs here. So if you have any questions, let me know, but that's kind of how I use these longer term VWAPs in my trading. Yeah, if you've got any questions, throw them in the comments. All right, thanks, guys.